Would you rather work at Arkham Asylum or the Daily Planet? I'll take Arkham. Now hear me out. They have good pay, and heck, it's probably not as bad as everyone says it is, right? You know, the Daily Planet doesn't sound so bad. Arkham Asylum, the iconic location for holding the most iconic villains, even though they escape multiple, and I mean multiple times. There have been many stories that have taken place at the iconic location. A lot of those stories often set the vibe and tone for what Arkham Asylum is really like. But one of those stories is actually the best Batman story ever told. Arkham Asylum, a serious house on Serious Earth, written by Grant Morrison, and illustrated by Dave McKean. The iconic story is about Batman being trapped in the asylum, surrounded by his most dangerous foes. Sounds very similar to an influential piece of work in the video game industry. I believe Arkham Asylum is the best Batman story ever told. Better than The Dark Knight Returns, Long Halloween, Year One, you name it. It's a book I read many times, and I could never stop thinking about. It's the best experience I have reading a Batman story compared to others. Now, everyone has their favorite Batman story for many reasons, but I want to explain why Arkham Asylum is the best Batman story ever told. If you haven't read Arkham Asylum and you don't want to be spoiled, I would suggest reading it first and then coming back to this video. Arkham Asylum has two stories that are intertwined. We have the past focusing on Arkham Asylum and the present focused on Batman. I'm going to be saying the word Arkham a lot, so please bear with me. These two stories are parallels to each other. We see Batman's perspective in the asylum, and we see Arkham's past unfolding. We're going to focus on Arkham first. At a young age, Arkham took care of his mentally ill mother. The mother often said she would have visions seeing a winged creature from time to time. Arkham was completely unaware what his mother was talking about. Years later, we have an adult Arkham returning to his childhood home, coming back from his mother's funeral. The mother actually committed self-harm. He stayed for the night in his home, and he also hears what his mother mentioned before, beating wings. Arkham works at a psychics facility, and he also works closely with a patient known as Mad Dog. Mad Dog was a psychotic killer who was sent to the facility for trial. Clients like Mad Dog inspired Arkham to start his own psychic facility. After having a dream that seemed like his childhood home was calling to him, the idea of Arkham Asylum would be born. Before his facility would be finished, on April Fool's 1921, his family would be killed by the patient he was treating before, Mad Dog. After his facility was built, Arkham Asylum, one of the first patients he would have was Mad Dog. He would counsel him for months going over the murder of his family, but out of rage, Arkham used an electric couch to kill Mad Dog on the same day his family was killed. Arkham felt he was slowly losing his mind in the asylum, the place calling to him like he was slowly connecting to it, losing his sanity in the madhouse. His mind becomes so broken he almost kills his stockbroker. He would be contained in Arkham for his own mental health and would stay there until the day he died. Arkham's story is filled with tragedy. Throughout his whole life, he has lost so many people that held dear to him. He was losing his sanity over time, with every event making him more insane. The house, the asylum itself, became a calling for Arkham. The only place he felt he was right at home with. Like he became one with the house. He became Arkham Asylum. The journey that led to him to be like this can all lead back to one thing. This one symbol that made Arkham Asylum the way it is. We flash forward many years later, and it's April Fool's. Batman is called by Jim Gordon about a dire situation. Jim Gordon tells Batman about the asylum being taken over by inmates. The telephone rings in the GCPD, and it turns out to be our favorite clown, the Joker. The Joker wants Batman to come to the asylum alone, and if he refuses, he threatens Batman that he will hurt the staff. Batman decides to go to the asylum, but before he goes, Batman admits to Jim that he actually was afraid. He was afraid that Joker actually might be right about him, that walking into the asylum would be like coming home. Batman arrives at the asylum and he encounters the Joker. Joker releases all the hostages and they both go inside the asylum. Joker actually, touched a nerve with Batman. Yeah, this version of Joker is in love with Batman. And I mean in love with him. They entered the main hall, and we see some of the staff actually stayed behind, including the administrator of the asylum, Cavendish, and the psychiatrist, Ruth Adams. We also see some classic Batman villains like Dr. Destiny, Clayface, Black Mask, and Two-Face wetting himself. Batman asks what happened to Two-Face, and Ruth responds saying that they were able to break off his dual identity. By replacing Harvey's coin with a die, he was successfully able to make more than 2 decisions. By now, he's using tarot cards to come up with more than over 78 choices. Batman argues this would be even more difficult to come up with the most simplest decisions, but Ruth Adam replies saying that sometimes we have to pull down in order to rebuild. This version of Two-Face is really interesting, and it's something we don't see explored in terms of his identity crisis. A Two-Face that is shown to break off the dual identity and try to regain his back as self again. I wouldn't be surprised if this inspired that episode of The New Adventures of Batman when Two-Face developed a third identity. So this bit of change that Grant did actually serves well for Two-Face, and he gets a surprising amount of development near the end of the story. This really serves well to one of the main points of the story, which is being a prisoner of your own mind and breaking out of it. Batman comments on Joker not being affected by the treatment in the asylum. Ruth Adam responds saying it's virtually impossible to treat him. This version of Joker has developed a super sanity, in which he adapts to his environment, changing his personality to whatever fits him, which could explain why sometimes he's a mischievous clown or a psychotic killer. He has no real personality. Joker comes up to Batman and shows him a card representing an animal. That animal would turn out to be a bat, but Batman responds saying he doesn't see anything. Joker then challenges Batman to participate in a word association game. The point of the game is to say a word, and then the person responds saying with another word that is associated with them. Mother, pearl, handle, revolver, gun, father, death, end, stop. Joker challenges Batman to a game of hide and seek. Batman would have to go through the deepest depths of the asylum while the villains wait an hour to find him. If Batman refuses, Joker threatened that he would kill the staff. As Batman is going through the asylum, he starts to break down. The word association game has made him remember the death of his parents. Wanted to point out the Bambi reference that clearly symbolizes his trauma. This word association game has truly mentally broke him, making him go spiraling downward. Batman tries to break free of this traumatic memory by trying to stab himself, to break free of the psychotic torture that Joker has committed. This version of Joker is one of my personal favorites. In this specific story, Joker knows what makes Batman tick. He knows how to break him down psychologically. He made Batman feel vulnerable, leading him to the state he's experiencing now. That is what makes their dynamic so great. The Joker's goal is to break Batman so low that he becomes as insane as him. This Joker is also great because of the explanation they gave for how he acts. I really like the idea that Joker is someone who is the product of their environment, not because of chemicals or clown makeup. Joker changes himself in the situation that best fits him. It's also a cool way to think about it, how Joker is different in so many incarnations of Batman history. He has no real personality. He flows with what society goes by and embraces that chaotic nature. As Batman wanders the asylum, Joker decides to allow the other villains to fetch him without waiting an hour. Batman would encounter Clayface and Dr. Destiny. This version of Clayface is a lot different from other incarnations. This version of Clayface was to be shown as very sickly, very dirty. Grant Morrison wanted to emphasize that this version of Clayface actually represented age, and it also represented the fears of what lies behind Arkham Asylum. Batman was so upright and brutal that he broke Clayface's legs and pushed Dr. Destiny off his wheelchair. I wanted to highlight that this version of Batman is very brutal, very cold. Grant wanted to show that this Batman shouldn't be held to the standard of the Batman we all know. This Batman is actually a representation of the Batman in the 80s at the time. With the success of The Dark Knight Returns, this Batman was shown to be very psychotic, on the edge, taken to the extremes of darkness of the character. The more Batman wanders through the asylum, the more he loses his sanity. Batman would encounter many foes like Scarecrow, Mad Hatter, Zeus, and even faced off against Killer Croc. This version of Killer Croc was shown to be more reptilian than actual man. Grant used a lot of Christian imagery to show that Killer Croc was actually a representation of the Great Dragon, and Batman was shown to be Saint Michael. When Batman faced off against Killer Croc, Grant wanted to show that this is Batman Batman conquering his own darkness, his own fears. And once Killer Croc was beaten, Batman was shown to be triumphant. He was able to be reborn again. He would run into Cavendish, the administrator of the asylum, holding a razor blade against Ruth's. It turns out Cavendish was the one behind the asylum takeover. This was because Cavendish read the letters of what Arkham wrote before he passed. Apparently, Arkham has blocked out in his mind that he was the one responsible for killing his mother, as he saw what his mother was talking about, seeing a winged creature, a bat. He thought the only way to save his mother from the creature, the bat, was to finish her off. The bat was the one responsible for what transpired to Arkham. Before Arkham passed away, he actually conducted this spell in order to try to contain the bat in the asylum. Cavendish blames Batman for the one to keep the asylum alive. Batman, what he does, putting the inmates in Arkham, caused more harm than actually any good. Cavendish did all of this to trap Batman in the house and avenge Arkham. Batman tries to stop Cavendish and ends up with Ruth Adams killing him. As they are near the exit of Arkham, Batman asks if Ruth has Harvey's coin. She gives it to him and Batman goes back to fix the error of his ways. Batman, after realizing that his actions aren't actually doing the good that he wanted to do, he felt like it was right to fix the error of his ways. Quote unquote, free the souls of Arkham. Finally stop what he had started. Batman has to show the inmates that he is stronger than Arkham Asylum. Like I said earlier, Batman is reborn after enduring what he faced and is now trying to free everyone else. Grant describes him as Saint Michael trying to fight against the darkness, trying to free his angels. Batman is breaking down everything in the asylum. He eventually runs into Two-Face and Joker. They all agree to do a coin toss to decide Batman's fate. Two-Face says that if the coin is flipped on the marked side, Batman dies. But on the unmarked side, Batman is free to leave. Two-Face flips the coin and says Batman is free to go. As Batman leaves the asylum, Joker gives a chilling goodbye, saying, "Have fun in the asylum. You're always welcome to come back home." The book ends with Two-Face showing the coin flipped on the marked side. Showing Two-Face was determined by his own choices. He was finally free of the prison of his own mind. Arkham Asylum by Grant Morrison and Dave McKean is what I call the best character study of Batman. I believe it hits the nail of the psychology of Batman. It breaks down perfectly of who Batman is and why he does what he does. By being Batman, does he do more harm than good for the city of Gotham? Can Batman ever get over the loss and tragedy of his parents, which mirrors exactly what Archimedes was facing? Does he belong to the asylum like the rest of the inmates? He's almost as insane as everyone else in the asylum. The madness makes us who we are. This story showed Batman overcoming his greatest fears and demons. I didn't mention it before because I skipped a lot of the parts of the story, but before then, Batman encountered Mad Hatter. Mad Hatter explained how this asylum is like a head. Sometimes, I think the asylum is a head. We're inside a huge head that dreams us all into being. Perhaps it's your head, Batman. Arkham is a looking glass, and we are you. This is what Grant highlights as the main point of the story. This is Batman's biggest nightmare. But at the end of the story, Batman is reborn again. Like Ruth Adams said, we must pull down in order to rebuild again. Batman is described as the redeemer of Arkham Asylum, helping to free the souls. Grant's use of symbolism, European influences, and psychology make up for Arkham Asylum to be a terrifying, thrilling ride. To dig deep inside the mind of Batman in his deepest, darkest corners. Grant was able to give a beautiful deconstruction of Batman, but also a gritty tale of the upbringings of Arkham Amadeus as well. If you know Grant, a lot of their work is known for being confusing and sometimes being hard to grasp. It definitely took me a few reads to understand what Grant was trying to tell, but the script that was released explained a lot of the ideas that they were going for. For Arkham Asylum, you can't praise Grant Morrison without praising Dave McKean. The art for this story set the mood for what Asylum really was, this creepy, eerie, European-influenced horror show. Use of photorealism as well really brings out this story to its peak. The use of paintings made the characters so horrifying, like Batman. Batman in this book is more of a shadow than a figure of a man, which really serves the purpose of the story of how the symbol of the bat has gotten too big, too large. The art often can make you feel like you're almost in a dream. The more you read through the story, the way the art gets more distorted, almost out of touch with reality. Many readers highlighted the fact that sometimes the art can be confusing to comprehend, and it even makes more sense when it was reported that there was a lot of disagreements with Grant and Dave when it came to portraying the story. But I think it even makes the story even better, which shows how complex and mind-boggling this book really is. To see the confusions between the writing and the art directions being meshed into one makes it just a whole new experience. Both were able to tell a beautiful story that is still talked about till this day. Whether it's the Arkham games or other media, this story has made a huge impact on the ever-continuing history of Batman. If I didn't convince you this is the best Batman story, then please comment below. What is your favorite Batman story, and why?